My name is Jonathan Twining, and I teach biology and environmental science at Eastern Nazarene College. I'm on a quest to see the world's wild places. From rainforests to vernal pools, the world is my laboratory, and I can't wait to explore it with you. Come along with me this time as I explore Costa Rica in Costa Rican Quest. Pura vida! I'm in a lowland rainforest near Dominical on the Pacific coast of Costa Rica. I've been going out on night hikes with Dr. John Cossel and his student group looking for reptiles and amphibians. Dr. Cossel does research on frogs in Costa Rica. When you're working with a herpetologist, you better be prepared for some long nights, because that's when it's easiest to find certain species. Finding frogs is not always easy. We know they're out there because we can hear the male frogs vocalizing. Then when we find one, we have to catch it for observation, and that is not always easy either.
Oh, shoot.
Well, it's time for me to try my skill at catching frogs by hand. Got 'em! Frogs can be easier to view and manipulate if you put them in a Ziploc bag. Here we are looking at an olive-snouted tree frog, Synax aleacrois. This frog is common in lowland rainforests of Costa Rica.
This is the olive-snouted?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, we saw one of these already.
Yep.
Some of the frogs we find are living on the forest floor, and we can find them by looking for their movement as we pass by. Many of these are in the genus Crowgaster, sometimes known as litter frogs or rain frogs. Here is Crowgaster snezhnagarianus. These are small frogs that have a call that sounds like a little squeak.
Oh my gosh, she's so cute.
When identifying frogs, there are several things you should look for. Distinguishing marks can be found on the head, the body, the thighs, and even the fingers and toes. Doc points out the distinguishing characteristics of another frog we have found on the forest floor.
It's another leaf litter frog. First thing you do is look on the back of the legs. Yeah, it's got the spotting. And then roll them over, and usually, but not always, there should be kind of a dusky throat with a white line, but I don't see that this time. So that's a good example of, you can't always go on just a single, yeah, it does. You can't always go on a single attribute, but this is Crowgaster fitzingeri, so.
In case you were wondering, Crowgaster fitzingeri is the frog I caught by hand earlier. Frogs are not always found along the trail. Sometimes you have to listen for frog calls and then bushwhack to find them. Doc has done this, and he returns with a brown foam frog, Leptodactylus poecilochilus.
Okay, so this is a species that my herpetology class can appreciate. It might look like at first glance to people the kind of frogs you dissect. Those are in the family, the true frog family, Ranidae, but this isn't that. They look kind of similar, but they have shorter back legs. They don't have any webbing in the back toes. They make a foam nest, so they'll call from underneath, and when they get ready, if their singing calls in and misses, they go into amplexus and they kick their back legs and froth up all of this mucus and air bubbles and sperm and egg, make a nest like a meringue, a foam nest.
Right. Another frog that builds a foam nest is Savage's thin-toed frog, Leptodactylus savagei. These predatory frogs can attain a size of around 5.5 inches. When captured, their warning call is quite loud and is said to attract caimans.
take the light off.
Which one is it?
What's his name?
Good find. This one is the red-eyed tree frog.
One of the frogs most commonly associated with Costa Rica is the red-eyed tree frog, Agalychnis callidryas. The red eyes are used as a defensive adaptation called startle coloration. The eyes can be opened abruptly to stare at an approaching predator. It catches the predator off guard, giving the frog a chance to flee.
He is beautiful.
Where are you, Davey?
This pair of red-eyed tree frogs is in amplexus, with the male grasping the female from behind before fertilizing her eggs externally. Red-eyed tree frogs lay their sticky eggs on leaves over a pond or puddle. Interestingly, this species exhibits phenotypic plasticity, where the eggs will develop more rapidly and hatch earlier than normal in response to disturbance, such as the presence of a predator or changing environmental conditions. Hey, what Costa Rican frog carries a hidden stiletto to attack other frogs? Find out next on Costa Rican Quest. Tree frogs tend to have little to no webbing on their toes. Each toe has a pad with tiny hexagonal cells that help them grip climbing surfaces. One pretty cool tree frog is known as the gladiator frog.
I don't know if you can get a sense of
He's got like a little...
how does it look like a tree frog or not. Yeah, big toes, big toe pads I should say. And they have the little extra cartilage in the end of the toes.
Dr. Cossel explains how this frog came to be known as a gladiator.
But this guy isn't particularly cool because this genus is called gladiator frog.
Oh, that's cool.
And if you look at his thumb right there, doesn't look like much, but that little bump and that bump right there, there's a little stiletto inside there, a bone. And it's in the sheath right now, but he can use that to stab other frogs. Wolverine.
Wow.
Here is another beautiful tree frog, the masked tree frog, Smilisca phaeota.
So he's got the black mask, kind of a light lip stripe, and then this veination pattern on the sides. So
Dr. Cossel is working with 3 other colleagues to produce an e-book on the amphibians of Costa Rica. One of Doc's responsibilities is the photography for the book. Here he is setting up his camera equipment so he can photograph 3 species we found on our night hikes. Doc maintains a list of which species still need to be documented. When he and the students capture a species, it has to be properly identified and photographed. He then returns the species back to the location where it was found, or he preserves it as a voucher specimen. Because the e-book will be used by others to identify amphibians in Costa Rica, Doc takes photos of the key characteristics, including the ventral and dorsal surfaces, the thighs, the fingers, and the toes. At times, it can be difficult to get the frogs to cooperate and hold their pose. Sometimes Doc also identifies and photographs other species that he's not seen before. Here he is using a couple of books, including J. Savage's Key to the Amphibians and Reptiles of Costa Rica, to identify a species of anole that he has not previously encountered.
I'm pretty sure with that blue dewlap it should be pretty easy to... I've never seen that distinctive before, so I bet we'll start simple and then go hard if we need to.
It turns out that this is a lichen anole, Anolis pentaprion. Well, the indoor photography session is over. Time to take these specimens back to where we found them and get a few photos in their natural setting. I hope you've enjoyed exploring Costa Rica and its biodiversity. I'll see you again next time on Costa Rican Quest. Pura vida!